Okay, in the previous video, I was talking about problem solving. And this video is a similar kind of topic all about transfer, how to apply old knowledge to new situations. There are different kinds of transfer. For instance, what we call positive transfer. The previous knowledge that we have will help us retain and use the new knowledge. Sometimes you come into situations where there's negative transfer. The knowledge that you already have gets in the way of new knowledge. There's specific transfer. When you take old knowledge and use it specifically to learn a new thing or use it specifically to solve a certain kind of problem. And then there's general transfer, which is probably more like real-life situations. It's an indirect use of old knowledge to a new situation. Now, you'll notice here I have this thing that says relies on G factor of general intelligence. Okay, in the cognitive perspective, there's this idea of general intelligence, the G factor. And in the G factor, it's sort of a convention that people use to talk about how, well, if you're generally this smart, then generally you can do this much transfer or this much problem solving. But if you're that much intelligent in a general sense, then you can probably be depended on to do that much transfer or problem solving. It's rather nebulous terms, I agree, but it is part of the vocabulary of the cognitive perspective. So, teaching for transfer. Teaching so that your students actually get good at transferring old knowledge into new situations. The idea is to help students see that their knowledge can be used to gain new knowledge or to solve new problems, to see it in a practical way. So you have to give them some practical experiences. So you give them activities to use new knowledge and find out how it can be applied or how it can be combined with old knowledge. You give them things to do that force them, you might say, to activate that kind of transfer. And you provide your students with problem-solving activities. Now, here's a terminology that may seem a little bit strange. Well-defined problem-solving, well-defined problems, and poorly defined problems for problem-solving. Now, that usually would have a positive and negative connotation, but it doesn't here. A well-defined problem means it's very easy to see what the problem is. It's very easy to see what a possible solution would look like. A poorly defined problem is one where you can't quite quickly get your hands on and define, oh, I see what the problem is, and I know exactly what the solution should look like. Poorly defined means not that you did a bad job, but you actually probably did an excellent job, if you shall we say, shrouding or hiding the problem inside something bigger, something a little bit nebulous, so that students have to really piece together and really have to work harder to find a solution, because first they have to actually find the problem. And that's really good for them. You wouldn't want to do it all the time, but it's really good for building that sense of transfer, that not only can I transfer old knowledge to a new situation when it's easy, but also when it's difficult. So, why teach transfer? Why actually go through the motions to make your students get better at being able to transfer? Well, it will definitely affect how they're going to learn things in the future. Obviously a good thing. And it affects their future problem-solving abilities. You know, it gives them more of a repertoire. Oh yeah, I've done this before where I've had to define the problem and find a solution. They get more confident and they get better at that skill of problem solving. And it affects how cognitive skills move from general to very specific situations. Okay, let me explain that a little bit. It affects, as you teach them to transfer knowledge and give them activities, it affects their abilities to get from general problem solving to more specific, to get from general thinking to very specific thinking. They can really hone in on problems better and solve more complicated problems because you've given them plenty of experiences to solve well-defined and poorly defined problems, and they can't help but get better at it. So let's maybe rewind and watch. I'll do the review questions and check in on the supplementary materials.